Caleb Maupin, journalist, speaker, political analyst, and an all-round wise guy. Caleb, welcome back to the mother of all talk shows. You saw it all last night. I was impressed by Trump, got to tell you. His command of the situation, his levels of confidence, and his complete domination of the American political scene right now. Is that how you saw it?
Absolutely. I mean, Donald Trump handled the audience amazingly well. That level of opposition that he faced, where you had Alan Green, the U.S. Member of Congress from Texas, waving his cane. They had to stop the speech so he could be escorted out. I mean, you have to look on at this and shake your head. George W. Bush invaded Iraq, lied about weapons of mass destruction. The invasion of Iraq led to the death of hundreds of thousands of Iraqis, thousands of U.S. soldiers. And when he spoke before Congress with his State of the Union speeches, Democrats stood up for him every time they gave him standing ovations. But Donald Trump, who's taken office once again and might, God forbid, want to end the war in Ukraine, was met with cold silence and disruptions. The Democratic Party is really bankrupt, and Donald Trump used this speech to just steamroll right over them. He even used their catchphrase. He said one of his goals was to provide, quote, immediate relief to working families. Now, that phrase, working families, that was a phrase that was popularized by the labor movement in the United States during the 1990s. Polling showed that in the United States, the phrase working class doesn't really go over. Americans tend to always say they're middle class. And the word working class, people think of communism or it's vulgar or something like that. But the labor unions discovered in the 1990s that if they talked about working families, that people responded very positively. They think of families working hard, struggling to pay their bills, a hardworking father providing for his kids, etc. And so, the labor unions here in New York State, they started the Working Families Party, which is the second ballot line for the Democrats, etc. And working families was a Democrat Party phrase until recently, because now the wokeification of the Democratic Party has decided that the phrase working families is somehow anti-LGBT. And I don't understand how that works. As far as I'm concerned, LGBT people have families. So I don't know where they're getting this from, but the Democrats are no longer talking about working families. So Donald Trump usurped one of their key phrases. This was an epic victory for Trump. I will say I have my concerns about some of what he said, but as far as a political victory, it was a knockout in one round.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at this as professional observers and analysts, not commenting on the values that lay behind the speech or even the specifics of the speech. But as a matter of political theatre and the kinetics of political power, what you and I are both agreeing on simply cannot be denied, that Trump is the man in charge.
Indeed, he is in charge. I will say my concern, I'm very happy to see the FBI, shut down and stop violating the rights of Americans and be restricted in their repressive activities and their meddling in U.S. politics. I'm very happy to see USAID and its soft power schemes cut off. I'm happy with a lot of what Trump is doing in terms of, limiting the power of the intelligence agencies and the deep state, et cetera. But I am concerned about the loss of jobs on the part of federal employees, because those are good paying jobs, jobs with binding arbitration unions, jobs that, pay sometimes six figures. And that's going to be not in the economy anymore. D.C. is already feeling the results. And while I don't agree with the agenda of the Democratic Party, which was cut and drive down living standards and, trying to degrow the U.S. economy in the name of climate change, letting the power grid crumble, et cetera, you can't cut your way into economic growth. And if you just reduce government spending, and if you just reduce government jobs, you get rid of the Department of Education, you get rid of thousands of good paying jobs in the public sector, where's the spending power going to come from? That's money that comes out of the U.S. economy. And that while I am certainly enthusiastic about repudiating a lot of what Biden has done, Bidenomics and the inflation, I am concerned about what the long-term result will be of getting rid of a lot of good-paying government jobs. You can't cut your way into economic growth. This Austrian school, Chicago school, Milton Friedman, flim-flam economics, the foundation of economy is working families, is people being able to spend their money. And Donald Trump was right when he talked about the power grid. We need strong power plants. We need to restore the power grid of the United States. A lot of that was great, but you can't cut your way into economic growth. Austerity does not work as a solution for economics.
Well, of course, as an American citizen, you're right to have every concern on these matters. For us, not Americans, we're more interested in Trump's foreign policy. As far as we're concerned, he can do what he can do within the boundaries of the United States, a matter for you and your people. But when he said, one way or another, we are going to have Greenland, a huge territory which belongs to a NATO ally, Denmark, which has been a slavish ally of the United States. Well, as Oscar Wilde said on the death scene in Little Nell, you'd have to have a heart of stone not to laugh. I laugh when I see Trump and the Canadians, Trump and the Danes at each other's throats, knocking lumps out of each other, because for me it says the empire is falling apart. How does that look to you?
Well, I think when it really gets down to it, we have to understand that Trump's election was a repudiation of the Atlanticist wing of American politics. The old money rooted in New England that is tied in with Britain, and you talk about the Rhodes Scholar Program, the Round Table Group, the Atlantic Council, the Council on Foreign Relations. The Atlanticist wing of American politics, the pro-NATO globalists, they got repudiated. And that's why Donald Trump is happy to inflame them with talk of NATO and talk of Canada. And also, this is the potential for the USA to pivot to the East. And there's been talk for a long time of a bridge connecting Alaska to the Russian Far East over the Bering Sea, and Trump wanting to restore relations with Russia with the ongoing talks in Istanbul. And that I think that there is a big section of the American elite that is with Trump and doesn't think the economic future of the United States lies with the NATO countries and with the former colonial powers. And it would be better for the United States to make a deal with the rising Eurasian economy and the Belt and Road and the new world that's rising in the East than to try to just go down with the so-called collective West. Now, honestly, I think we can look into the pages of history. When it looked like Italy was going to leave NATO in the 1950s with the rise of the Communist Party, there was a wave of instability and unrest in Italy called the Years of Lead. And we now know that was the result of the CIA's Operation Gladio, and British and American intelligence fomented the Years of Lead in Italy, political instability and unrest that led to Italy remaining in NATO, despite the wishes of the Italian public. And I believe that right now, when we see the romanticization of Luigi Mangione and his alleged killing of Brian Thompson, and the kind of romanticization of political violence in the United States, that's what the pro-NATO wing of the establishment is trying to do. They're trying to foment some kind of American Years of Lead, political instability and confusion to restore the pro-NATO aspects of the American establishment. I think Donald Trump's not some kind of heroic anti-imperialist or something. He's just more concerned with the domestic U.S. economy, and he represents a layer of American business that is not as tied in with globalism and the World Bank and the World Economic Forum, etc., and that there is a division among our elite, and that Donald Trump is very similar to the new right in all of Europe, whether it's Brexit in Britain or the National Front in France or the AfD in Germany. There are divisions because the globalist outlook and the Western financial order is crumbling, and that's what's underlying all of these divisions and tensions.
Let's turn to the big enchilada, Caleb, the rapprochement with Russia. talks in Istanbul, following on the talks in Riyadh, restoration of diplomatic relations, hotlines re-established, back on, plans for more talks, plans for summit meetings, even a plan to perhaps reopen the Nord Stream pipeline as a partnership between Russia and the United States, though the German Chancellor has just said he'll do everything he can to stop that. Quite amazing, really. The thorn in the eye, or the potential bone in the throat of all of this is Zelensky. He seems to me in a kind of schizophrenic stance. I mean, I looked at my phone there to see if it had changed in the last hour, because an hour ago broke the news that he was, after all, prepared to negotiate with Russia. Seems like an hourly oscillation that's going on. What's really happening, do you think?
Well, I was outside the White House while Zelensky was inside, and I saw with my own eyes how politically bankrupt Zelensky is, because Ukrainian television was outside the White House as well, and they had less than 10 people there, but they were gathering them all around the camera to make it look like their reporter was in a crowd of thousands of people. It was the most disgusting display of propaganda staging that I've ever seen. Meanwhile, there was a local D.C. man who was confronting them and saying, why don't we give the teachers a raise? Why all this money for Ukraine? And, you know, the mainstream media that doesn't like Trump and wants to continue the Ukraine war, they've been showing these demonstrations of Ukrainians in the United States. And you have to ask yourself, you know, it's worth pointing out, all of those Ukrainian young men that are at those demonstrations, they're all draft dodgers. Why would they be in the United States and not on the front lines in Ukraine if they're in the United States? If these guys are so enthusiastic for their country and they just want to continue the war, why are they here avoiding military service as every last Ukrainian man is being dragged off the streets? So Zelensky doesn't want an election because he would lose, because he ran for office on a peace platform and delivered the opposite. Zelensky is bankrupt. Trump's base is laughing at the political smackdown he received inside the White House. So I think that it is only a matter of time before a deal is signed. I will say I'm anxious to see it happen. I really like a lot of what I'm hearing, but it ain't over till it's over, as they say. And the Ukrainiacs, that's what I call them, the Ukrainiacs, the one of them tried to kill Donald Trump, you'll recall, during the election, an individual, an American who'd fought in Ukraine, called himself Ryan Roth or whatever, and he tried to kill Donald Trump. And the Ukrainiacs are fanatical, and they're bloodthirsty, and they are determined to keep this war going. So my concern is I want to see this war brought to an end, and I want to see it end as fast as we can. And words are nice, but we need to see some action. You can't judge Donald Trump, any politician really, but especially Trump. You can't judge him by what they say. You have to judge him by what they do. So when this war is over, when a peace treaty is signed, when U.S.-Russia relations are back at a normal, healthy place as they should be, I will feel much better, and so will the majority of the American people. Public opinion has never been in favor of a military adventure and investing America's hopes and dreams into the Ukrainian battlefields. That has never been where the American people are at.
Now, J.D. Vance, who, quite impressive, I think, he's talking a lot about freedom of expression, freedom of speech. It contradicts what they're doing in the American universities on Palestine, of course. But he seems to be sincere, if you can park that issue. So when can we see RT, Radio Sputnik, back on the air in the United States? Is there any possibility of that?
Well, we could only hope. Sanctions are the issue there. Certain sanctions were placed on RT. and those sanctions would have to be lifted. And rumors go around about those sanctions being lifted and such, but I can't confirm anything. I just hear rumors, just like anybody else. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that RT and Sputnik are back functioning at full capacity in the United States. That would certainly be a victory because there's all kinds of foreign media in the United States. So why should Russia be excluded? Why doesn't Russia have the right to do it just like any other country? Obviously, we're hoping that should change. J.D. Vance's words are very biting because this is the old dog chasing its tail. Well, we have to get rid of our freedom because there's these bad people out there that want to take away our freedom. So we have to take away our freedom to make sure the bad people don't, get enough influence and popularity that they'll take our freedom away. This is the old Cold War argument. It's very silly, and J.D. Vance sees through it and has called it out very effectively. If we're truly for Western liberal democratic values, we should let people speak even if we disagree with them.